Welcome to a new episode of the Google Perspective. And today I was going to talk a little bit about the NBA, some of the things that I did my research on, and give my NBA grades for the free agency. And I was going to do a little bit of the MLB talk, but then I believe now that since I didn't do a show last week, what I'll do is I'll break it up and I'll do all of the NBA today, talking about what was going on as far as the sales of all the teams and the teams who did like a little bit of the share of a sale or who gave up partial ownership and the teams who sold, and talk about the grades that I gave for all 30 teams in this free agency, and I'll talk about the MLB next week. I think that'd be the best way for me to do it, to break it down and, to kind of make the show run smoothly. All right, now that I got that settled, I'd like to say thank you all for chiming in, and I just appreciate all the followers, and thank you for all the impact you make. Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. Thank you all for the love and support that you give. And it's definitely highly appreciated. I appreciate everyone, as far as the people who chime in, the people who listen to the show. Even if you're not a sports fan, I just love and I respect that you all support me. So, by that being said, I like to say thank you, and it's highly appreciated. All right, I want to get on now and I want to get to the show. I want to start off and I want to talk about a few things right now. And I want to basically talk about what's going on in the NBA. I want to talk about Boston and what they've did just recently, how they really helped their salary cap. It's not probably going to help them next season due to the fact Jason Tatum's out, and that team's going to be looking a little bit different without him as well. But still, I believe they did a lot of saving for that team. More than anything, I say the best opportunity for them before they sold this team, it was good to get some of that money off of, their salary cap. The Boston Celtics cut over $300 million from their luxury tax bill that week alone when they got rid of a lot of the guys that they got rid of, or, well, I might as well say who they traded, and, getting some of the players in on cheaper discounts. And basically, they're set for next year. And unfortunately, they're set to not make the playoffs. So, the one good thing about it, you got your good and the bad if you're looking at it from the Boston's fans' perspective. They had that like two, maybe actually they had a 5-year window and they won the championship. Is that a failure? Not to me. I thought that they was one of the teams who would, even if they didn't win and defend their title, and go back to back. I thought Boston for sure was going to be one of the teams who will be able to make it back to back to the finals. So that being said, I was actually surprised. But then a lot of injuries and things got them. And for all the money that they spent and went out there to run back and try to make a back to back championship run, it backfired, unfortunately, because you had Kristaps Porzingis being injured like he normally is. You had Drew Holiday was a little banged up, but Jalen Brown and more or less Jason Tatum. There was a lot of guys on that team that was banged up this year, but Kristaps Porzingis was out a significant amount of time, and that was probably one of the reasons why not just him, but just them being injured, and having the injuries. And I just can't really say that's the reason why they didn't win a championship or go back to back. It's hard to win championships in sports, but I mean, going back to back is even harder. So I appreciate and respect all the teams who've done it in the past. And my Detroit Pistons in 88, 89 did it. So, I was really happy about that. And it's good for us to actually see more than one championship as a Detroit team, definitely a small market team. Was their roster last season, and it's going to definitely have a makeover going into next season. They had a really good team, and I thought that team can definitely win the championship, or at least get back to that actual championship with the roster they had. They had guard Drew Holiday, who's now gone, and they got rid of him, and he went to Portland. They had Derek White as a guard, for Jalen Brown, the second forward, Jason Tatum, and center Kristaps Porzingis. Next year, 2025, 2026, the roster, the guard's going to be Anthony Simons, who I think is going to be a really good guard. He has a more or less prove it deal right now. He's on a 1 year contract with the Boston Celtics. You still have Derek White, Jalen Brown, but the thing is, you're not going to have one of the players back on the team, and which is Jason Tatum. He's going to be out for the season with the Achilles injury, and he's going to be replaced with George Nang and center Xavier Tillman. So that's going to be a totally different team. I'm not trying to be funny or disrespectful to the Boston natives or their fans, but I don't think that they'll be able to make it to the playoffs. That's my opinion. I'm just saying. And I want to talk about some of the owner groups and some of the teams that's been sold recently because I talked about that on one of my last shows. The Boston Celtics owner, the Grossbeck family, announced their intention to sell the team July 2024. But the initial phase of the sale was expected to be complete in 2025. The full sale is expected in 2028. We already know, and if you wasn't familiar with the sale of the Minnesota Timberwolves to Mark Lure and Alex Rodriguez, a huge fan of Alex Rodriguez. That's the crossover from baseball. I was surprised as hell that they didn't let them get the Mets, him and J Lo, but I'm glad they didn't because after their separation, it's good that he ended up going after a really good young Minnesota Timberwolves team. So congratulations on that, and that was a subject of dispute in March 2024, which I thought was just really messy. The original owners wanted to get rid of the group, and they wanted to sell the Minnesota Timberwolves. But then when Minnesota Timberwolves started making revenues and ended up being a legit team, they wanted to back out the deal, which was already too late. And then that's when I believe they made a settlement in court that you guys already made this deal. And now since you made this deal, you got to stick with it. And they basically made them own up to what they were doing and they had to sell. So at this point, it was eventually approved by the NBA Board of Governors in 2025. And then, of course, other teams sold was mentioned. I don't really consider this as a sale because a 10% stake of the Milwaukee Bucks was sold in September 2024, but that was a minority stake sale, not the owner selling the entire team. As of mid 2025, there has been one prominent NBA team ownership change reported. The Los Angeles Lakers. Mark Walter, CEO of TWG Global, acquired the team from the Buss family for reportedly $10 billion, making it the most expensive sales of a sports team ever. While other teams in the NBA may have had minor equity shifts or leadership changes within their ownership group, the Lakers sale represent a major change in owners of the entire franchise. The weird part about it too is Janie Buss is still going to be in charge, even though they own it. I don't know what was a handshake deal or what have you, but she's going to still be one of the people who still make the decisions for that franchise. So I want to see how that works and how long it works out. Because if you're not the owner and you don't have any stake in the team no more, and you want to make decisions on the team that I bought, and man, I'm not trying to give you that type of power. I believe it's a respect in the Bus family and what they've done. But still, at the end of the day, I wouldn't let you make major decisions like that when you sold the team to me. I believe she knows what's best, and she's did a really good job, her and her family, and it's been in her family since the 80s and passed on to her when her father passed away. So I just want to see how this happened, but it's just a red flag to me, like I said before on the last show, when you got all these teams and they're selling a lot of these major teams, two major teams in the Boston Celtics and the Los Angeles Lakers. The history behind both of those teams and both of them are selling. Yeah, man, something's not right. And you got Minnesota out, Dallas Mavericks sold, and it's just kind of weird right now what the NBA is. It's a new chapter when it comes to ownership now. So I just basically want to see how this play and how it unfolds. But I'll definitely keep you posted. One other interesting thing that I heard too, and I know you guys probably did, but just wanted to spread my light on it and kind of give it my, little tweak. Damian Lillard was told Giannis Antetokounmpo was upset about the breaking news recently, free agent fever. Um, when the news broke out that Damian Lillard was being released to make room for Miles Turner, his 4 year, $104 million contract. Despite reports that Giannis was distraught by Lillard's release, ESPN Ramona Shelburne revealed that um, he did have a heads up, and basically he was all in on the deal. I don't know if it was any discrepancy or any beef with him and Dame, but it just seemed kind of shady the way it was done. I don't got no problem if you were going to make this move, but you made the Miles Turner move, and I thought that was huge because I thought that you was going to focus on having Dame heal and get better, and then having Miles Turner on the team. But then you turn around; it wasn't even a half hour later when we found out that he was released, and I think it was so bad that he was released. And if I'm not mistaken, they're still, have a lot of money that's going to be spread within the next 4 years on that contract. So they're paying him not to play on the team. So that's a big slap in the face. He won't be there for next year, but then the other, 3 years at the least, he won't be on the team and making 22, something million. I will get back into that too, but I just thought that was a disgrace. $822 million was spent between Oklahoma City Thunder Big Three, Shai Gildas Alexander, Chad Holmgren, and Jalen Williams. I mean, congratulations, fellas. I'm not mad at y'all to getting y'all bank, and I appreciate that y'all got y'all money. Difference is when you do those type of moves too, you just better hope right now that they're not moving the team or going to relocate or either sell, because it seems like only one team that I knew of was the Boston Celtics, who gave out a lot of money to keep players, but then after things didn't materialize and work out, and we knew that they were going to sell regardless, then that's when they start shedding some of the actual money and the luxury tax. So, I mean, I want to see how this work out. Shai Gildas Alexander received a 4 year, 285 million, and the highest annual salary in NBA history. Chet Holmgren received a 5 year, $250 million new extension, and Jalen Williams received a new 5 year, $287 million rookie max extension. So they shedded out a lot of money for that team, and I know that that was rightfully so. They're young enough and they got a really good core that they could run it back. Hopefully, it won't be a lot of injuries or anything that goes on. We know Chad Holmgren, you had injuries when he first came in the league, but then other players can get hurt, and that could change and shift everything. Just act the Celtics, man. We looked at them like they were a sure thing that'll be able to go back and repeat until everything happened the way it did. So, that being said, I want to move on, and I want to give my NBA grades, and then I'll focus on doing another show next Tuesday on baseball and giving you some of the stats and things that I just found out recently. And I wanted to give you guys a cool story as well on one of the players, from back in the day. It was a crazy story, but it ended up being a good ending. The one story I did when a guy was on LSD and he pitched a perfect game was probably one of the craziest stories I've ever heard. But then I want to talk about my man's Mr. Bobby Vanilla and Vanilla Day. That's what we call it. And I want to focus on that actual gentleman. I won't bring his name up until I put on the show. I just want all the baseball heads who appreciate baseball to come. And even if you don't watch baseball or really look in on baseball, I just want you to appreciate the story and what he's went through. Because I mean, he went through a lot of adversity, and through the grace of God, he was able to make it through. I want to get ahead and I want to talk about my grades, and I want to do it for all teams. I don't want to get too deep into it. Just tell you the grades and why I gave it to them. I gave the Atlanta Hawks an A. I felt like they always really needed a person who can be on the side of Trey Young. I thought the DeJounte Murray was going to be the answer, but it seems like they were just cluttering up the um, game with their personalities, I believe, collided. And not only that, they had kind of the same style almost, and it was bumping heads with one another. So that's the reason why that didn't work out. But the guard, Nikhil Alexander Walker, and I really felt like he did a really good job with Minnesota. I was really surprised at seeing how well he played. And then I found out he was kin to Shy Gilders Alexander. And I was like, okay, well, they got that in their DNA. Them getting him, I thought was a really big deal. And they ended up getting Luke Kenner in free agency. And the notable losses they had was Karis LeVert and Clint Capella and Larry Nance Jr. I think that Karis LeVert was kind of a big deal. But then Clint Capella was actually a big deal too. But I believe that they were moving on because they didn't do anything with him when they had him. So they wanted to try to get a restart or get a reboot with the team. Larry Nance Jr. wasn't really too much of a big factor. I just thought that he was a journeyman and he played well off the bench. But yeah, I still gave that deal an A just because of, them getting Alexander Walker. He going to become the team six man with LeVert gone and overall upgrade due to his defense. Youth and consistent shooting. He'll run point guard at times while defending three different positions. So I believe they have a really strong person who's going to be on their team and he can defend at a high level. So that's why I gave that an A from what I've seen from him in the playoffs last season. Boston Celtics, I gave them a D. And I know people like, here you go again, Hugh, with all these crazy grades. I gave them a D because I feel like the notable signing, Luca Garza and Josh Minott, I don't really feel like really did anything to impact the team, especially when you're losing to Jason Tatum for the whole year, even though they got Anthony Simons, but I still don't think it's going to be enough. And what I told you how their roster's going to look. Their notable losses, they got rid of, actually, Luke Cornett ended up signing with another team. I think him signing with San Antonio was really excellent because you got Victor Wembanyama. If he have any injuries or if he's still hurt and couldn't play, he's a good player. He can score, and he's a really feasible big man. I've basically been watching a lot of Boston Celtics basketball, and I just believe they got a gem and definitely a guy who could come in and fill minutes and score huge points and score some buckets for the team. It's just a really good deal right now. He's a good veteran. They didn't spend a lot of money, so I feel like that's good for them. Problem is Boston have the issues because they're about to sell that team. They moved on from Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, and they're getting a lot of money off of that roster right now. I think they're focused on building around Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, which I already figured that was going to be the case. And having Derek White still at the moment is still good because I still feel like even if they do have a down year, that if they don't make the playoffs and can get a really high draft pick too, that can spell trouble. But for now, I just feel like they're going to be a team that don't even make it to the playing game. So that's why I gave them a D. Brooklyn Nets, I gave them a B. I didn't think what they did was bad. I mean, how it's going to convert on the court. Will it do something for them or will it won't do something for them? That's what we got to wait and see. The Michael Porter Jr. deal was good. They got Jerron Sharp, he resigned, and Zaire Williams resigned. Cam Johnson was basically the same player as Michael Porter Jr., but I believe Michael Porter Jr. get banged up a lot, and by him being as big as he is, he don't really go inside and get dirty in the post. He shoot a lot of threes, and when he's on, he's on, but when he's off, he's very inconsistent. So that's the problem right there. But it's still a plug and play, and it's just basically you trading one player for another, and you're going to get his issues in Cam Jordan. So right now, I feel like we're typically not including trades in this free agent grading, although Porter and Johnson swap for Denver could only happen with the Brooklyn Nets using 17 million off of their cap space. This was a win-win for both franchises, like I was saying, as the Nets got younger, more dynamic offensive player, and a 2032 unprotected first round draft pick from the Nuggets that can come, it really can come, become extremely valuable. So let's see what they can do with this pick because Brooklyn, do I think that they're going to be a play-in team or in the playoffs? Absolutely not. So that's where the value of this pick can be at. And I'm definitely watching and seeing what's going to happen with my man's Russell Westbrook too, because you never know where he's going to land. That's still out there in the air and see where this veteran player who a lot of teams possibly can need, where he'll go and how high he'll be valued. I gave the Charlotte Hornets a C on this one. They ended up resigning Trey Mann and point guard Spencer Dinwiddie and journeyman center Mason Plumlee. He plays well when he gets out there and he plays in spurts, but he's a journeyman to me, nothing more. Okay. LaMelo Ball, 40 games played last season were actually his highest in since 2021, 2022. So it's been easy to see why Charlotte Hornets have to build up a guard rotation this summer. A healthy Trey Man is well worth more than 24 million dollars over the next 3 years. Given the Hornets' potential, that was a steal. The 24-year-old averaged like 14 points, 3 assists while shooting 40% in the last season, albeit his 13 games. So he didn't really play that much, and he's been very injury prone. But Spencer Dinwiddie is a really solid veteran, and he can go in and he can play well for that team. He's already been there before, so he got people who he used to there. And just in general, I believe he can go in and play a big role. I gave the Chicago Bulls a B. Trey Jones re-signing was big. I don't think a lot of people know Trey Jones, but he's a really good player. As we await the fate of Josh Giddey, the Chicago Bulls secured a backup point guard position by bringing Jones back on a 3-year, $24 million deal, which I think is a steal as well for this young man. This is really a good value for the Chicago Bulls. And as Jones is still only 25 years old and very solid after being traded to the Bulls last season, he averaged almost 15 points a game, 5 rebounds, 7 assists as well, and 57.1% from 3 in his 9 starts. So yeah, this is a good start for them, man. But I believe with them, if they can keep Josh Giddey and have that young nucleus over there in Chicago, they're going to be pretty good. I don't know what all they're going to do and how they're going to execute. I still feel like they'll be a high draft pick team, but it's going to be a youth movement right now. So I just want all the Chicago Bull fans to be patient. I gave the Cleveland Cavaliers C. I feel like Larry Nance Jr. is basically a journeyman. And Sam Merrill resigning is not really that flashy to me. When they lost Ty Jerome, that was a huge blow. No offering Ty Jerome a contract after finishing third in the Sixth Man of the Year voting was bizarre to me. The decision by the Cleveland Cavaliers front office, especially since they essentially gave the same money to Sam Merrill instead. So that was my biggest head scratcher. Merrill is a better defender, although Jerome brings far more scoring and playmaking ability and finished tied for third in the NBA in 3 point shooting at 43.9%. So yeah, I just feel like Cleveland didn't really make no sense to me on this ordeal. But then at the same time, I thought that Cleveland was going to give a huge scare to any team who was trying to make it out of the Eastern Conference last season. They got banged up at the wrong time, not having their prolific center and then having like some of the other guys not playing like Garland. And it just basically took the momentum away from them by having those players injured. And, yeah, they had Donovan Mitchell play well, but when the other players wasn't there, he couldn't fill the void because he was scoring 40, 50 points and they still couldn't win those games. So that's the biggest blow that happened with them. So I just don't really still know where Cleveland's at. They're on shaky grounds with me, but then at the same time, I feel like the deal wasn't as solid as well to me. That's just my opinion. I gave the Mavericks an A, even though I know Kyrie Irving won't be back next season, but he resigned and then getting guard D'Angelo Russell, who can score in bunches, but he has a streaky situation too where he could, play good. He could give you points. So we've seen it with LA. He can score 25, 30 points one game, turn around, and only give you five, He'll show up and then he'll be missing, within the same beat of the drum. Unfortunately, that's not good for the Dallas Mavericks, but then I believe they got enough firepower that they'll be okay. And then you got Dante Exum too as well. The loss of Spencer Dinwiddie doesn't really affect this to me. And Kyrie turning down a $40 million player option to return on a new 3 year, $119 million deal that started at 36.7 million, basically was a win-win for both sides. As the Dallas Mavericks gain a little bit more flexibility with their offseason moves, and that they did. I still believe right now Russell has his faults. Like I told you, although they're far easier to overlook when he's making 5.7 million instead of 18.7 million. So they're not really concerned because they're not paying him a lot of money right now. I believe he'll hold down the fort until you get Kyrie Irving back. But then, I'm not even including the draft, but I still feel like they did a really good deal. And Exum reportedly chose the Mavericks over two other contenders, returning for a veteran minimum deal. So he feel like he like what he see over there and want to build on that. Dallas need his playmaking abilities now with Irvin out, and he's become an excellent 3-point shooter. So this is good opportunity for him. And if he stays and do well, other teams will definitely be trying to lure him in with bigger bank and give him more money. I think the best thing for him right now is Kyrie when he got injured. That definitely could help him right now. This is a make or break season for Dante Exum. So if he play well, he will get rewarded. But if he don't play well, that's another thing. He might be stuck with another veteran minimum. I gave the Denver Nuggets an A. I would have gave them an A plus if you ask me how well they did with this one. Just them, getting Cam Johnson. Like I said, they made the pick swap. They got Bruce Brown back, and then they got guard Tim Hardaway Jr. I think that was big for them because that their front court, or just period, that team in general, can go toe to toe with any team. The problem was the bench play. They trying to solidify that bench now, make that bench play stronger, and get people over there that can play with Nikola Jokic and help him and help Murray out as well. Him and Jamal Murray, man, when they play on their level and when they're clicking, man, they're hard to beat. But then now you could get guys like Cam Johnson and Bruce Brown back in the fold, and you're going to have play from Tim Hardaway Jr. And I know how good he is because he played for the Pistons last season. So I want to see how this works out. And then I just feel like this was big for them. And one of the bigger things is too, I'm trying to see what's up with Jonas Valanciunas as well. So now Nikola Jokic can definitely relax because he got a hell of a backup center. And I just feel like now they can go toe to toe on any team because their bench is just as strong. Hell, their bench can start if they were on another team. So I thought that was a huge move for them. They knew their weakness and they went after their weakness. And now that's going to be one of their strengths, and that's their bench. Detroit Pistons, I gave them a B plus if you want to add. I know I wasn't saying no B minuses and all this stuff, but I gave them a B plus because I feel like getting Karis LeVert and guard Duncan Robinson via sign and trade, and then getting Paul Reed re-signed. A lot of people don't really respect and know Paul Reed, but if you from Detroit area, you know and you respect and you like what he did for the team, and they didn't really overpay for him neither. Dennis Schroeder, on the other hand, wanted the money that we wasn't going to give him. I was sad to see him go, him and Tim Hardaway Jr. and small forward Simon Facencio. I didn't too much like those moves, but I knew why. They wasn't going to break the bank for them. JB Bickerstaff is good at developing players, and then the players that we have are going to definitely be good for to replace the players that we lost. Detroit Pistons has some notable additions and losses in free agency thus far, yet overall, I feel like they have improved the team offensively for the future and their flexibility. I believe they got young and they had a nice youth movement. Detroit ranked 14 out of 16 playoff teams in 3-point shooting. Now that's going to change in an area where Duncan Robinson will certainly help. His 3 year, $48 million contract was like really a good bargaining deal, too, and it's only partially guaranteed in year two and the non-guarantee in year three. So I just like with the moves they were doing. We made bad deals, with Josh Smith and other players in the past. So to do this and really take care of business on this, I thought was a good move. And congratulations to the Pistons for being savvy for once and getting good players in and not breaking the bank. like we used to have to. Losing Schroeder to Sacramento Kings isn't bad at all, as Detroit was able to turn the transition into a sign and trade that will either return some talent or net them at 14.3 million trade exception. I feel like what I didn't like is I don't know if a lot of people really know this. I thought that Malik Monk was part of the deal with Sacramento. That was the huge rumor that was going on. I would have loved to got Malik Monk, but then when we found out that that wasn't going to be the case, we hurried up and we got Karis LeVert, and we ended up getting Duncan Robinson, which I thought was a good move. So I was happy about that. Golden State, I gave them an F because they didn't make any moves. Yeah, they still got Jimmy Buckets, but then, I still don't feel like what you're looking at over there is you don't really know what's going on. Yeah, you got Steph Curry, and then you got Green, and you got Jimmy Buckets. What else after that? That's what the problem is right now. And then, we always said that they need a really good, versatile big. Kevon Looney might not have been that, but then he still gave you guys a decent big. And he left because he didn't feel like he was respected over there. When they said that when Steve Adams played, this came out of his mouth. When Steve Adams was in the game and they didn't let me play, I feel like they didn't have no faith in me, and they didn't give me the opportunity that they gave me before. He was winning championships with this franchise, but when it mattered for them in the playoffs, it seemed like they moved away from him. And that's where he felt some kind of way and was ready to get the hell out of Golden State. I just feel like right now the Warriors still have a full 14.1 million mid-level exception to use, as well as 8.7 million trade exception created last February in the Jimmy Butler deal. Golden State can sign Al Horford and trade Jonathan Kaminga, who's not a factor over there. And Steve Kerr definitely let you know that he's not really trying to hold on to this kid. Let him go somewhere where he can play and he can enjoy himself and where he's happy, because you heard from Kevon Looney where he said he wasn't happy in Golden State. Then you heard it from Klay Thompson, the way they treated him his last few years. And now you're hearing this from Jonathan Kaminga. Steve Kerr, he has his favorites, and you can see it right now. And it's like, hell, if your name is not Steph Curry, Draymond Green at this matter, all the foolishness he do, he's moving on from you. And hell, I don't even know if, Draymond Green got a, huge rope right now. I think that he could be traded, or, they can move on from him if he don't produce this year. Houston Rockets, now I gave them an A too. Hell, they got an A plus in my opinion, because not only they got Dorian Finney-Smith, a really good defender and a good 3-point shooter, but then you resign Fred Van Vliet. You end up getting Clint Capella from the Hawks. Steve Adams resigned. You get the veteran Jeff Green back, and then Ford, Jay Tate resigned, and guard Aaron Holiday all resigned. The only person they got rid of is a guy named Jock Landale, the center, who I don't know who the hell that is, honestly. The Houston Rockets are dominating the offseason, and not just because of the Kevin Durant deal. And I didn't even put that in there. When Kevin Durant went over there and they got all these other key players over there to play too as well, I think they know what time it is. I always like Emi Udoka, and then now you really giving him the weapons and the talent to there where they can compete, and you give him a shooting assassin like Kevin Durant over there, a really big time player to score buckets. And I was telling people before, Jalen Green was up for trade because they just didn't feel like he lived up to expectation, as one of the Thomas twins did. So they felt like that they could get rid of him, bring in more talent. Kevin Durant is more than just a little talent. When he's healthy, he's one of the best players in the league. So I think that that was a really good deal. And then, to get Fred Van Vliet back, Adams and Clint Capella to go along with Appearance and Goon, I can't wait to see that team play in the West. They're very deep on offense, defense, and they got a heavy bench now. So these was things that they didn't have last year to compete, and they lost to teams when they were the number 2 seed. This kind of reminds you of somebody. OKC last year when they lost, they went out and they got Isaiah Hardenstein, and then they ended up getting Caruso, and they solidified their team, and they got some veterans and people over there who can help plug and play, and they're champions now. I'm not saying all that for Houston right now, but I still feel like with a healthy Kevin Durant and all the other guys clicking on the same level, hell, they can definitely put heat on OKC. I gave the Indiana Pacers a F because they didn't try to do anything and they didn't have anybody brought on that roster. And then losing Miles Turner, your main key player outside of Tyrese Halliburton, who won't be back because he's injured. I don't really have nothing else to say. You got an F, and it was well deserved. Los Angeles Clippers, I gave them B plus if you want to ask. James Harden resigning and then getting Brooke Lopez from the Milwaukee Bucks was a good move. And Nick Batum resigned. They lost Drew Eubanks, but I'm not really too familiar with him, to be honest with you. I still feel like what they did is try to solidify that team. The Clippers are usually not one of the better teams when you look at, but then now you got some players that'll be over there to be able to play and to be able to try to help them out on their bench because you know you already got Zubat over there as the center, so they're going to probably be sharing minutes. Him and Brooks Lopez, and Brooks Lopez can go out there and he can shoot the three. I just want to see what this brings to that team. You know, Avika Zubac is definitely a great talent, but then now you got Nick Batum back and you got James Harden back on his deal when he signed. You got Kawhi Leonard when he's healthy. I definitely feel like they're doing something over there. I'm definitely hoping too that we don't have Kawhi Leonard banged up like he always is sometime in the year. If he can stay consistent, then I'm looking out for this team. I gave the Los Angeles Lakers a D. DeAndre Ayton, I don't really feel like the answer. I was upset at first and said, why didn't we go after him? But then it's like, he don't show up in big games. I've seen that in a playoff before when, you know, they ended up getting rid of a lot of people from that Phoenix Sun team, you know. And the funny thing about it is he just don't show up when they need him. Hopefully he can do that with LA because they will definitely call him out and all the veterans and the people who are over there who are some of the alums just in the Los Angeles nation. They won't allow that to happen. So he's going to have to play at his best or he might be gone before the trade deadline. They ended up getting Jake LaRivia. Don't know him. Jackson Hayes resigned too. Familiar with him. He's okay at best coming off the bench. He gives the bench a spark. But losing Dorian Finney-Smith definitely was a low blow for that team, and I just don't feel like they can really do much right now. I feel like if they got a Jared Allen or a Daniel Gafford or somebody like that, I would be like, okay, I see what LA is cooking, but to get DeAndre Ayton, a guy who I don't really feel like show up in big moments, I should have gave him F, to be honest with you, because I don't still feel like that's enough. I gave the Memphis Grizzlies a B plus. You know, they end up signing Sante Aldama. He re-signed, and then Ty Jerome. The notable losses was Luke Kennard. Still feel like, regardless of this, yeah, you know, I know people like, well, damn, you know, Desmond Bane's gone too. But what I believe now is they're not really focused on the big three; they're focused on their big two, and they're going to try to get players that play around that. And maybe now, if you want to say a big three, you could probably even look at Zach Edey right now. So let's see how that unfolds. I gave the Miami Heat a B minus. Or better yet, I'm gonna say a C at this point. I'm not gonna get too technical. I did like guard Devian Mitchell. He resigned. He's a really good player, and he's one of the players who stepped up when Jimmy Butler wasn't there. Notable losses, of course, Duncan Robinson. But the Miami Heat are yet to sign any outside free agents, although they did acquire Simon Fatticchio in the sign and trade with Duncan Robinson, of course. But bringing back Mitchell to a 2-year, $24 million deal was important as the 26-year-old was a key starter and rotator piece to the Heat. I believe right now that's going to help them in their rebuilding process as well. So I'm not really sure what they're going to do yet, but the Miami Heat just seem like they're always sticking around. If they're not in a playing game, they're in a playoff. So I just still feel like with their brass with Pat Riley and what they can do over there, if they can still get some significant moves or get a trade, somebody low key or something that can really help their team out, I'm looking forward to what they're going to do. Milwaukee Bucks, I gave them a C. Just didn't really feel like they did a lot. I felt like that was messy with the whole Miles Turner and Damian Lillard ordeal. Bobby Portis resigned, and then you got guard Kevin Porter Jr. who resigned. Gary Trent resigned. Ford Turion Prince resigned as well, and then you had Gary Harris and center Jericho Sims. But the notable departure hurt them the most when you lost Damian Lillard and you lost your veteran center at Brook Lopez. I still feel like they didn't do enough, and I don't really believe this is going to help Giannis Antetokounmpo. They're saying they want him to stay, but he knew about what happened with Damian Lillard. So, let's make this make sense. If signing Turner was enough to get the two-time MVP to stay, then the grade would be deserved. I feel like for now, it's just really messy what they did, and I'm not really looking at it and feeling like they did anything good. And like I said, Waving Lillard wasn't worth the price for the Miles Turner deal that you set up. And however, especially since he'll cost the Bucks $22.5 million in each of the next 5 years. I said four. So it's 5 years without him even playing a game. So that lets you know how fast they wanted him out of town. I thought the Dame wanted out, but it seemed like he went in there and he cooperated. Hell, they wanted out from Dame. I gave the Minnesota Timberwolves a C plus. Julius Randle resigned, and I don't really have a bad deal with that. Nas Reed resigned, and Joe Ingles resigned. So I thought that wasn't bad, but I thought that they could do better. The thing that really hurt them was the Mikael Alexander Walker and center Luke Garza leaving, and Josh Minute. Not really so much, but still, you lost really big time key factors on your team. And an ideal offseason for Timberwolves would have been to re-sign Randall Reed and Alexander Walker, in my opinion. Still, 2 out of 3 wasn't really as bad as you would think. Randall 3-year $100 million deal, and then you got Reed on a 5-year $125 million deal. Both contracts should age fine, although it's fair to question if the team can win the championship with the former number one, 2 overall option. So, but besides that, I feel like if they could have kept Nikhil Alexander Walker, that would have gave them a huge, grade for me. It probably would have changed the significance of their grade. New Orleans Pelicans, I gave them a C. They ended up getting Kevon Looney, but they lost Bruce Brown back to Denver. The Pelicans, I don't really see them really doing much. You don't know what's going to go on with Zion Williamson. Time and time, he's always hurt. And then, they ended up letting CJ McCollum walk, or they're in a trade. Just don't really feel like they did enough. And I don't think that they'll be a team that we'll be looking for in the playoffs neither. I don't really have to waste my time on that and waste my breath. New York Knicks, I gave them a B plus. Guard Jordan Clarkson going over there signing, and Bashukin Ubaseli, the dude from the New York Knicks, he's a weapon, man. That's a big dude who can hustle, and he plays the game the old school style. He's one of them 80s, 90s throwbacks. And for them to get a guy like Clarkson, which we kind of figure Utah is kind of clearing their cap right now and trying to get younger. But that was a really big move for the New York Knicks, and that's only going to help them get better. And he'll help reduce the 35 minutes a game that Jalen Brunson has had in the log in the last 3 years. That's something that'll go well with the new coach, Mike Brown, because he wouldn't have to worry about not really having a solid bench or, a rotation to where he had to work those guys to death because there wasn't no talent over there. So, yeah, this will definitely help Mike Brown out. But then it's like, why couldn't y'all do that, for Thibodeau? Oklahoma City, I gave them a B. Big ups for running it back, getting Jalen Williams back, re-signed, and Jai Mitchell. Of course, I told you they signed Chet Holmgren, and then they signed Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, try to keep their big three together over there. And I think that they'll be definitely one of the teams that I'm looking forward to because I believe they'll run it back. I gave the Orlando Magic's an A. Titus Jones and Mo Wagner re-signed, so that was actually pretty good. Getting Titus Jones, and then having Mo Wagner back because that's already a good team. It's a good young team. I only think it's going to get better as they have more experience. The guard forward, Gary Harris, was a notable loss, and we pegged Orlando Magic as the best fit for any team for Jones. So, services going into the free agency as the offense desperately needed a playmaker and a three-point shooter. Getting Jones for $7 million was a great bargain for Orlando, and less than his younger brother Trey Jones got from the Chicago Bulls at $24 million over 3 years. The team turned down an $11 million option on Wagner, only to resign him a much more reasonable $5 million deal, which keeps Orlando under the first apron with 14 players under contract. So I feel like if Wagner can perform, if Orlando don't sign him, hell, somebody else will. But right now they got everybody in play. So I think that that's still going to be a good team to be reckoned with. Philadelphia 76ers, I gave them a D. You got Justin Edwards guard, and then you had Eric Gordon resign and center Trenton Walford. Still don't feel like that's enough. My bad, you guys. I said that Gushan Yusuf Bailey was from New York and he was on the Knicks. No, he was with the Philadelphia 76ers. Let me correct myself. The Philadelphia 76ers have been fairly quiet this offseason despite having an open roster spot for $21.7. $21.7 million. Let me clean that up below the second apron. Quentin Grimes remained a restricted free agent with no offer sheet yet. I feel like they done messed up in the past anyway. They try to get big time players over there. James Harden didn't want to go over there. They got rid of Jimmy Butler because they felt like he was messing up their chemistry. And then you have the situation where you have Paul George, who definitely wasn't significant, and all the money and all the trade pieces he got for him ended up going to a championship between the two former teams he was on, OKC and Indiana. That being said, I still don't think that team's going anywhere. That's just my opinion. I definitely like, Tyrese over there. I think that he's an explosive player. I love Maxey. Just don't feel like there's going to be a good team. And you're going to have the injuries with Paul George, and you're going to still have the injuries with Joel Embiid. I gave the Phoenix Suns a D. They ended up getting Nigel Hayes Davis, but they lost Titus Jones, Cody Martin, and Mason Plumlee. If the Phoenix Suns had a plan, they've done an unbelievable job of hiding it. Phoenix is still over the second apron, even after trading Kevin Durant and his $54.7 million salary. So they are limited to veteran minimum deals and resigning their own free agents. Even so, Martin was waived to cut the tax bill, while Jones, Orlando Magic, and Plumlee, Charlotte has both departed. Portland Trailblazers, I gave them a C. They didn't sign anybody, but I still feel like it was a good move on moving on from DeAndre Ayton. But you moved on from a guy who you paid a lot of money and he didn't do anything. So it's like, did you really make a significant impact? You know. So yeah, I don't really still feel like they did a lot. I gave the Sacramento Kings a C. It's sad too because no disrespect to Dennis Schroeder going over there, but then they lost Jake LaRivia. I just don't feel like the guys are happy over there. That's all I have to say. When you have your center and he's saying that he wants to leave, Domantas Sabonis like, I want out of there. Or maybe I could go and say they're power forward, whatever the hell now, because the guys are soft. They can be 7 feet and be a power forward. Hell, some of them small forwards. But when he wants to leave, and then you have issues with that whole team players getting shopped off like De'Aaron Fox and the way things happened over there with Mike Brown. It was just really messy to me. But I just don't really feel like this is a home where people want to stay. And I wouldn't be happy being there neither if I was any player. So that's why I gave them their grade. I gave San Antonio B minus because they ended up signing Luke Cornett, and he's a really good player. And they signed him to a 4-year, $41 million contract. And by him being his age, he'll definitely help out, and he will do a good job on Wemby, when he needs some rest. But I still love their young nucleus, and I like what they did too in the draft. So that's why I gave them their grade. I gave Toronto a C. I like Garrett Temple, and Henry signing was really the main factor into this. I still don't really felt like they did enough, but then they got a C. And the Utah Jazz, I gave them an F, and the reason being is because Utah didn't really do as well as I thought they would right now. Not only did they not do nothing, they lost Jordan Clarkson and shooting guard Johnny Jazang. I know that they're cleaning up house, and then I was hearing rumors too that they are possibly talking about getting rid of marketing. So that being said, I can't really fault them for not really making any deals and trying to trade off their veteran players and trying to start over. The Washington Wizards, I gave them an F. And I just feel like, yeah, they got Trey Johnson, they got CJ McCollum and Kelly Olynyk in the trade, but I feel like players go to Washington to die. And that's all I had to say about that. I would like to say thank you all for chiming in once again. And if you want to catch up with me, these are the ways that you can catch up with me. You can find me at Hewley at Hoovy on Instagram, Facebook, I'm Sports Guru to you. And then on TikTok, I'm Hugh.Lee6. And of course, you can catch me too if you have any questions or things that you want me to say or talk about more on the show. You can hit me up on sportsguru to you at gmail.com. That's the end of the show. I'd like to say thank you all, and have a blessed day. Peace, and until next week.